And pleased to be joined now by Humboldt City Council at-large candidate Dan Lodden. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me, Eric.
First question, what made you decide to run for City Council?
The short answer is that it's my money. The long answer is that I think that city government, it really boils down to how we spend our money. Obviously for a community the size of Humboldt, we don't have, foreign policy, domestic policy. It's really about how we spend our money and how we generate value for the community.
What have you seen, if you're elected, what will be your goal as a member of the City Council?
I think the primary goal should be to get our infrastructure to the point where we can sustain ourselves for a long period of time. One of the things that we know from the last couple of years, our water treatment plant is in terrible shape. Our sewer system is in terrible shape. There were a few incidents in the last couple of years where we had, a little bit of flooding, and a lot of us, including me, had, raw sewage back in our basement, which is not a good thing. And I think that our focus really needs to be, positioning ourselves for existence and growth in the future.
What have you seen from the City Council in the last couple of years that you like, and what have you seen that maybe you'd like to change as a member of the City Council?
I was at the City Council meeting on Monday, which would have been the 20th, October 20th, and they're definitely going in the right direction on the water treatment plant. I stayed for the work session where they had a presentation from Fox Engineering, and the presentation had some very, very good alternatives and options, and was also significantly cheaper than the last proposal we'd seen, which involved building a new water plant. As far as things that I don't like, one of the things that I've noticed in the last couple of years is what I like to think of as kind of like the cash for clunkers fallacy, where we do things based on whether or not we can get federal funding for it. And of course the fallacy of that is that, if you bought a car under the Cash for Clunkers program, wonderful, you got $4,500 off your purchase, but all of a sudden you have a new monthly payment, right, where you may not have had before. And I think that, the tendency to work on things or build things based on federal funding is really, it may be a good idea at times, but having that as like a criteria or a criterion for doing a project doesn't seem very logical to me. Because, we'll pay for it eventually. It's like P.J. O'Rourke said about universal health care. If you think it's expensive now, wait until it's free, right? So in other words, if you think your taxes are high now, wait till the federal government gives us a bunch of money to buy a bunch of new stuff, and then it's going to be really expensive. I think another thing that I don't, I shouldn't say I don't like, but I think the council could do a lot better is respond to public input. One of the things that Mayor Jensen did when he first got elected a couple of years ago that I really liked was that he actually instituted a public input section of every council meeting. A good thing, but I think the council could do a lot better at responding to that public input. And, I certainly haven't watched or attended every single council meeting, but I think I've seen enough of them on TV and been to enough of them in person to know that a lot of times the public input really isn't accepted. Maybe accepted is kind of a, not accepted is kind of a harsh word, but it's not really responded to as well as it could be. And then I think probably the last thing that I think the council could do better is there appears to be very little discussion, and I think it should be a concern that I don't recall any vote being anything but unanimous I don't recall ever seeing a dissenting vote on any issue. One of the things that I'm very, very adamant about is being very objective. Listening to input and being objective. I mentioned that Mayor Jensen has done one thing. I pointed out one thing that he's done that I liked. I think that he's done a lot of great things, but that doesn't mean that I agree with everything that he says. In fact, I'm definitely going to vote for him. I've got a sign in my yard. But if I get on the council, I'm not going to make any guarantees that I'll agree with anything that he says, actually. In other words, I'm a free and independent thinker. So,
fair enough. City Council candidate Dan Lodden, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks very much.